seen it happen. So did many of our people. So I know that these aren't made by craft or aliens or ETs or humans or animals or students drunk after a night on the town. I know they're not made by anything that we would accept as a rational explanation. So what does that leave? That leaves the irrational. You have to step outside the box. We have in our history, in our culture, myths and legends of the other world. Those of you who, like me, in your long, distant, errant past, partook in magic mushrooms or something like that, would have journeyed into that other world a little bit. That other world is there and there. We use 23% of our brain when we're awake. We use 27% of our brain when we're asleep. The parts we use when we're asleep are not the parts we use when we're awake, at least not all of them. Nearly 75% of our brain is unused, at least as far as we're consciously aware. Why did we choose to be born with such big brains if we're not going to be using them? And where do crop circles come from? The crop circles are made by an entity called the crop circle makers. That's easy. Where do they live? Just outside of our perception, just outside of our range of consciousness, there's a different dimension, just there. And that's populated by a group of beings that we've called fairies, pixies, brownies, trolls. Just there's a dimension of people or beings living that we call the fair folk. Just there's a dimension just outside of our perceptive range where the crop circle makers live. All of these beings are indigenous to the planet. They've lived here at least as long as us, if not a lot longer, and they're really hacked off with us because we're screwing up their planet. Time doesn't work in those alternative dimensions the same way as it works here, which is where the stories of a year for a day comes from. In many ways, the fair folk, they live hundreds of times longer than us. They see us as flies, as gnats. We live a very brief moment of time in their terminology. But the circle makers, they're sending us millimetre precise formations, all based on mathematical formula, in an effort to accelerate and upgrade our consciousness. There's a desperate attempt by this planet to get us to wake up and smell the coffee. And the astrology gives us the schedule for when this is happening. And if we don't do this in the next 3 years, we're not going to do it. There'll be such a downturn and a moral decline, we'll degenerate, and we'll disappear within 300 or 400 years. And something else will spring up. Alternatively, we'll expand our consciousness, we'll engage more of our brain, we'll engage with extra different dimensions, we'll keep our individuality, we'll keep our identity, we won't become telepathic, we won't be able to read each other's thoughts, but we'll know when something isn't right, or that something is right. We'll have a clearer, guided sense of ethics and morals. We'll be able to engage more consciously with the semi-conscious signals that we pick up from each other, from our environment, and from the planets. Astrology will become a much more reputable and accepted science. I'm dreaming in a really positive future here, folks. Because if these things are not a part of our future, what kind of a future are we heading into? To quote Terence McKenna, we didn't cross the ice sheets for this, we crossed the ice sheets to go to the stars. And if we don't reach out for help from those other world entities, from our relationship with spirit and the divine, we're alone, we're on our own. There's never been anything like humanity on this planet before. We're the response to some type of magnet in the future that's pulling us forward and accelerating our evolution. And now we're at that point. And I say to you that this time of February to May 2026 is the final crunch point. If we haven't done it by then, 2.5 years from now, 30 months from now. So I think collective, I can't tell you what to do, I can't tell you how to live your life. I know that I'm going to go out there in this next 2.5 years and I'm going to flog my guts out to get this out there in the world, and I'm going to do my very best to make a difference, because this is the last best hope for humanity. Without it, we might as well just give up and something else will take over, as has happened before. Meantime, Astrologos, the study of the stars. Without astrology, this world would be so much poorer. Without astrology, we would have no idea of our relationship with the solar system, with the cosmos, with the universe. We've seen the geometric perfection of the heavens. We can replicate those patterns into our lives on Earth. We've seen the perfection of the patterns that appear in our fields. There's a link. Use it or lose it. It's 20 to 6. This has been an amazing weekend. I'm done. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the ramblings of someone who's probably mildly insane, but who's having a great time on the trip. So, right, I'm not going to take questions now, but I'm going to be around for the next half hour before we have a meal in 35 minutes time. So I'm quite happy to engage and interact. So yeah. I'm going to slowly pack up and get ready to go home after the meal, but what a great weekend.